A sailboat sits motionless in the dark waters of the Abaco Islands, rocking gently as the tide pulls at its hull. No running lights. No AIS signal. No clear sign of life on deck. A Coast Guard transmission cuts through the static, calling out to the vessel's soulmate, asking for any response at all. There is none. Only the sound of wind over open water and the faint crackle of radio silence that feels heavier than noise. 5 weeks earlier, Lynette Hooker vanished from the same stretch of sea near Aunt Pat's Bay on April 4th. What began as a missing person report has slowly shifted into something far more complicated, with each new detail pulling investigators deeper into a timeline that refuses to stay consistent. The calm waters of the Sea of Abaco were supposed to make this easier to understand. Instead, they seem to have swallowed the truth whole. Soulmate, a 46-foot sloop associated with Brian Hooker, was initially believed to have drifted slowly from its anchorage toward Marsh Harbor over a period of hours. That explanation was simple enough at first glance. A boat left unattended in calm conditions, carried by current and wind. But almost immediately, the details began to fracture under closer inspection. The timing of movements, the environmental conditions, and the reported speed of drift did not align in any clean or predictable way. The vessel itself had been tracked in a way that raised early concern. At key moments around the disappearance window, its AIS system appeared to be switched off. AIS, or Automatic Identification System, is not just a navigational aid but a transparency tool, broadcasting a vessel's position to nearby ships and monitoring systems. Turning it off in busy or monitored waters is unusual enough to draw attention on its own, but doing so during a missing person investigation shifts the weight of that detail entirely. It changes from a technical choice to a question of intent. As investigators began reconstructing the timeline, they quickly realized that the simple drift explanation did not account for what witnesses claimed to have seen. Reports began to surface describing flares coming from the direction of Soulmate's mooring before 9 p.m. That detail alone complicated the narrative. Flares are not casual signals. They are distress indicators, used when visibility is low or when immediate attention is required. Yet there was no formal distress call logged in that period, no consistent follow-up communication that matched what the night sky allegedly showed. Around the same time, surveillance footage from a nearby vantage point at Lover's Quarters added another layer of uncertainty. The footage reportedly captured light activity at multiple timestamps, including 7:47 p.m., followed by additional flashes around 12:27 a.m. and 12:32 a.m. The vessel was assumed to be unoccupied or at least inactive during parts of that window, yet the visuals suggested movement, or illumination at moments, when the boat was not expected to be operational. The significance of those timestamps lies not only in what they show, but in how they conflict with the idea of a drifting, unattended vessel. Investigators from the Coast Guard Investigative Service eventually executed a search warrant on Soulmate while it was moored at the Conch Inn. The operation was quiet but thorough. Devices were removed from the vessel, including a digital video recorder, tablets, and cellular equipment. Each item was taken for forensic analysis, with the expectation that digital data might reconstruct what human accounts could not. On boats like this, electronics often carry the most honest record of movement, communication, and timing. While the physical search was underway, attention shifted outward toward the water itself. Authorities requested public assistance in identifying an additional sailboat that had reportedly been moored near Soulmate during the critical window of time. This second vessel had not been fully accounted for in initial statements, and its presence raised immediate questions. Boats do not appear and disappear in isolated bays without leaving traces in memory, radar, or witness accounts. Yet here was a gap, a blank space in a location where every movement should have been visible to someone. The idea of a second sailboat introduced a possibility investigators could not ignore. If it was present during the key hours, it may have observed movements, interactions, or signals that were never reported. In maritime environments, proximity matters. Even without direct contact, vessels share sound, light, and motion. A nearby boat at night can hear engines, see flashes, or notice irregular activity long before official channels ever record it. To test one of the core claims in the case, a controlled drift demonstration was carried out by sailor Blaine Stevenson. The goal was simple in theory: to determine whether a vessel under similar conditions could realistically cover the reported 4.3-mile path within the stated time frame. The results did not support the original narrative. Environmental conditions, current strength, and wind patterns suggested that the movement described would have required additional force or propulsion beyond passive drift. That single finding did not solve the case, but it weakened one of its foundational explanations. As inconsistencies built, investigators began to focus more closely on the timing of events rather than the events themselves. The 9-hour drift window described in early accounts became harder to maintain as fact once mapped against environmental data and witness input. Small discrepancies in maritime timelines are not unusual, but here the gaps were widening instead of closing. Family members of Lynette Hooker, including Carly Ellsworth and Darlene Hamlet, continued pressing authorities for answers. Their public appeals reflected a growing frustration with the pace of the investigation and the number of unresolved contradictions. In cases like this, families often become informal investigators themselves, tracking down sightings, comparing statements, and pushing for clarity where official summaries remain incomplete. Their questions centered on one core issue: how does a person disappear from a boat without a clear, traceable sequence of events leading to it? Legal representatives involved in the case declined to provide detailed commentary during a press exchange, further deepening the sense of uncertainty around the investigation. In high-profile maritime cases, silence can carry as much weight as testimony. When questions are met without explanation, attention naturally shifts toward what is being withheld, even when no evidence confirms intentional concealment. At a certain point, Soulmate itself changed location. The vessel cleared Freeport and began a passage toward Florida under the supervision of a hired delivery captain. On paper, this was a routine relocation. Boats change hands, move ports, and travel under new command all the time. But in this case, the movement of the vessel did not resolve any of the outstanding questions tied to its previous anchorage. If anything, it created a new urgency around digital records, forensic downloads, and any remaining trace of what occurred during the critical period in Bahamian waters. The AIS system, still a focal point of scrutiny, remained part of the unresolved technical picture. Its disabled state during key intervals raised ongoing questions about navigation transparency and intent. While systems can fail or be manually turned off for legitimate reasons, the timing in this case placed that detail under sharper suspicion. As investigators continued piecing together the sequence of events, attention returned again and again to the same unresolved points. The second sailboat that was never fully identified. The nighttime light activity captured on surveillance. The disputed drift timeline. And the unexplained gap between what was expected to happen on Soulmate and what witnesses and data suggested actually occurred. Each piece, taken individually, might have been explained away as coincidence, error, or misinterpretation. Together, they form a pattern that resists easy resolution. Not a conclusion, but a collection of contradictions that refuse to settle into a single narrative. The water around Aunt Pat's Bay remains calm in every recorded image. There are no obvious signs of struggle, no debris field, no definitive visual marker of what changed the course of events that night. Yet beneath that calm surface, the investigation continues to circle the same unanswered questions, returning repeatedly to the same point in time where everything seems to blur. At the center of it all remains one simple uncertainty. What happened during those hours when the lights were seen, the AIS went silent, and a second sailboat may have been close enough to witness something that has never been fully spoken aloud?